So anyway, how's everyone doing? How's your day going?
How's it going? Open mark. No.
How's it going, dude?
Good. Jesus. I've got like two. I'm excited for two campaigns going on simultaneously. That's going to start both at the same time. So I'm going to be like, oh Jesus, so much D&D.
Oh
it's
boy!
The best
really?
To have,
so you're alternating between two games. Like, do you run both of them, or?
Oh no, I've taken a break since we have too many DMs, and they all want to run at the same time, and we're like, Jesus, no, this can't happen.
That's actually it's kind of nice to have a lot of DMs or GMs, like people who can kind of step up.
I know this is like it never happens where
DMs,
everyone's a DM.
Yeah, DMs are usually few and far between.
Yeah. But it's, we sort of do like a round table where, like, when people get tired, you just switch to the other campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes as a player, where it's like you keep alternating, or sometimes, once a story starts going up, and then we go off to something else. Or what I found is that sometimes the players have a preference for one campaign or two campaigns, and all they want to play is that game or that other game. And there'll be some peripheral game of do you guys want to learn this system and then have all these new things, and they kind of don't really want to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They get comfortable. Yeah. No, I feel that.
I think we do kind of operate a little bit, since we all have GM'd before. So it's we operate a little bit where it's where we're kind of like are respectful for whatever the DM wants to run, and we're like, if you're feeling it, bro, it's fine. We're down for it. So I don't know, because it's like we know how much work it is. So
yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah. Good.
Yeah, we have a bunch of like there's me and another GM and I kind of alternate, and it is kind of nice, kind of sort of have someone else who alternates. We don't play in the same world, mind you, but like they have their campaign and I have my campaign, and it's kind of nice because I do feel like sometimes if you do it weekly, for some GMs it can be burnout. Like I like running weekly, but sometimes if you're doing it every other week, you can really look forward to running that game, as opposed to sometimes you get in the habit of, oh God, is it Saturday again?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it happens.
So question to you
Especially
guys.
when it's a lot of prep.
What's like your breakdown as far as being a player versus being a GM? Like what percentage of the time are you one or the other? And like, do you have any preference for one or the other?
Oh, God. Like a breakdown percentile?
Like what I mean is, like, do you spend most of your time being a player, or do you spend most of your time being a GM? Like, is it 50-50 or?
Well, I'd say I'm mostly a player. I'm like 75% player, and then the rest I'm DM, which is really fun. I have only one campaign, and it's kind of easygoing. We don't really get too much into continuity and that sort of stuff. We mostly just have fun and have cool fights.
Yeah, actually, 25%, 75% is a fairly nice percentage to be, because then you're kind of getting like, you kind of get to alternate between both of them. When I first started playing, I think it was like 90%, 10% between.
Oh, you were the guy. No, you were the GM guy.
Let me clarify. I was the player. I was 90% the player, 10% the GM, and
the tables have turned.
The reason why it was originally that way was because there was this one GM or two GMs who were like really interested in running. They ran all the time, and then whenever one of those GMs couldn't make it, then I would be like, "Oh, I have this game I want to run." And actually, the other GMs that would run, they were the ones who they would talk to the players and get the schedule, and then get everyone together. And so, really, they were more of kind of like the people who schedule and set up the thing, and then I would just kind of swoop in for a game or two in the middle of their campaign. But actually, what's happened is recently it's kind of flipped, where it's more of like I run games like 95% of the time, and then I play 5% of the time, because I was running Adventures League, and then I was running a Saturday group and then a Sunday group. And so I was running about like 3 in a week or something, and then sometimes I'd play every once in a while.
Oh god, do you ever feel like oversaturated with D&D? Like, what is everyone's threshold? Do some people feel like they hit a maximum, like a ceiling, where they're like, oh Jesus, I can't take
this
anymore.
Is too much D&D.
For me, it's like for me, I think at max I can play once a week. At max 2 different games. Like I learned that whenever I had like a too many D&D moment, where I was like, okay, this is too many campaigns to keep track of.
My brain is exploding. I think my limit is twice a week. 2 different campaigns.
Yeah, for me, because because it's part of my air quotes work in terms of making stories online. I'm like, oh, this is like part of my work. This is what I do. Like I remember the first time I went to Adventures League, I thought to myself, well, if I go there, if I'm miserable, at least I get a video out of it. And in some ways, it's almost better if it's miserable, because then you get like, ooh, it's a funny story. And the other thing is that there's a lot of groups that I run for where it's like, if I'm not running it, I want to meet up with these groups on a regular basis. And so if I am not out there running a group, then, we don't get to meet up on a weekly basis. It's that thing of, if you aren't meeting weekly or bi-weekly or something, then you may not be in contact with each other. It's very easy to kind of fall out.
As for me, my spread of what I consider my spread is not exactly the spread that I have had in experience. Like, because it's weird with me, I don't really have a spread. It's more like I'll play for a little bit, and then I'll feel like DMing, and then I'll DM, and then I'll miss playing, and then I'll be like, and then I'll go back and forth. Because I've only ever fully DM'd one campaign, but it was loads of fun, and I had lots of fun, like, coming up with assets and voices and characters and all that stuff. But then, I was like, okay, I kind of feel like playing now. But then as I play, I'm like getting all these ideas. It's like, oh, that's cool. Oh, I like that. I like how that DM put that thing in. And then I'll be like in the DMing mood again.
Yeah, I feel the same way, where I get in the mood. I'm like, oh, I want to tell a story, and then get to DM mode, and then so yeah, I feel like I'm more player. I have been more player, but like, yeah, I flip flop just like you do. It's like where I'm like, but I have a character that I want to be like important and not an NPC.
All it takes is one character that you really want to play, and then you're suddenly a player. You're like, oh man, I can't wait to try him out.
Oh, yeah. I feel so bad for, like, my heart goes out to all the forever GMs out there. Like, my heart breaks for them.
Oh no.
I'm very impressed that you guys are managing to do some drawing while you're talking, because, like, for me, like, mentally, it's so tough.
Oh man, I get what you mean.
If you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah, it's fine. You're the one who's looking at the questions. So
okay, cool. Yeah.
I will take over the whole bottom half. Oh, good.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, so,
wait, we didn't get to ask Puffin what his favorite class was.
Oh yeah, Puffin, what's your favorite class? We were talking about this off the recording.
One of the questions, and we shouldn't do that yet.
Yeah,
no. You guys can go into that. I have not. I think I've kind of answered this. It was like, I always play fighters. Like, I always keep coming back.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did a whole video on
Battle Master Fighter. Yeah,
I didn't know if it's changed though, so I wanted to ask.
I will tell you, like, I've gone through this thing where I'm trying to play through a bunch of different classes, and it's made me feel, kind of the appreciation for each of the different classes, the way they're built and everything. But I will say it's like that thing where I always like, I'll even do a second class, and then I'll always do a level or two of fighter. And the reason why is I just love that Battle Master ability. I love those dice, the superiority dice.
I have a GM that's just like that. Oh my gosh, that just is obsessed with Battle Master.
Yeah, and you can even give them to monsters, and you can give them to, like, goblins, and you can just hand them out to everyone. Dude. They just all have superiority dice. It's great.
Yeah, it's really fun.
All of them have repost and, like, action surge and all the things. And you can tell I don't play fighter. But yeah.
Yeah, Jess, what's your favorite class?
Oh, of course. I'm so divided because I love. My heart says Bard, but my soul says Warlock, which I give away. That's my favorite. Jesus, yeah, it's they're both so good. They're so diverse. You know, you get so many plot hooks with a bard, and so many plot hooks with a warlock. It's like your instrument is important. It could be anything. It could be you could be a painter bard, or you could be a singer. You know, a normal singer bard, or you could be like, obviously, like a dancer bard, or you could be a fortune teller bard. Any kind of entertainer, and it's just like, such good flavor, and also having a best friend with a warlock.
I think
it's a free best friend, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the nice things also is how many classes have our charisma casters, because like charisma is a really nice role playing stat. Like a lot, like it's really nice to play as a sorcerer or a warlock or a bard because you know they use charisma and you get to talk to people and people like being a talkative character a lot of times.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. That's probably why I also like bard. My favorite class is also bard. Because of like what you said, Jess, is that their power comes from their creativity, and that's just a really cool thing to me.
It's also very relatable.
Yeah, for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
And Adan, you said your favorite class was Druid?
Yeah, it's the first class I ever played, and I find it very useful. You can, as I said, you can turn into an ant, and you can enter any place you want.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really neat, yeah. And like I think Druid for the longest time was kind of one of those classes that I was always kind of meh about. I was like, I don't care much for Druid. But like I actually tried one out and I was like, oh my god, this is so awesome. I can turn into a crocodile and throw myself at somebody just because I feel like it.
Yeah,
and
or it's like,
oh my god, Druid is so awesome. The whole turning into animals, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
It could be the best kind of hippie where you could rip someone apart.
Yeah.
All right.
I get to kill people.
You know, Druid of the moon or whatever, I think.
Oh, that's so good, yeah.
Just like be a casting beast, just shoot out just a bazillion damage.
My first character in Discord was actually a Druid of the moon. Moonbeams just destroyed every single undead, ghost, anything we fought that was weak to range. They just vaporized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our druid used Moonbeam on the final boss for TOA, and it was actually really effective. I mean, second level spell.
Yeah.
Jesus, it's really good.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think some of my least played classes are the ones I kind of avoid. I think like Monk, I don't really play that much. Ranger.
You can move on to least favorite classes.
I don't
Monk is so cool.
Monk is good.
I can't really say I have a least favorite class because I haven't really played that many classes. I just have I would just like to try all of them at least once. And Monk seems cool. You can freaking catch arrows out of the sky and throw them back to people and all this cool stuff with Ki and all that jazz.
You can walk through water. You can walk up walls. It's a whole bunch of things you can do with Monk.
Catch things with your hands.
Yeah, you never
bullets.
have to beat. You don't need to dream. You can be charmed or frightened. You can speak every single, everyone understands what you speak, and you can understand everybody that speaks language. That's just, it's great.
Yeah. So my brother was I think he was 12th level or something, or I forget. He leveled up to the language one, and he was watching all the other players. It's like, ooh, I can do planar shift. Ooh, I could do this, and then he opens it up, and he's like, "Are you kidding me?" And it was the you understand all languages or something, and he was like, because it was just because his previous levels had been you can teleport in darkness or something, and he was looking for something like that.
Yeah,
and then it was the bonus languages, and it's okay, fine. I mean, it's really good. I mean, it's technically really powerful.
It's good. It's just,
it's just not what he was looking for.
I think every class has a bonus feature that's kind of underwhelming. Like Bard at level 20.
Charm.
Oh yeah,
or that too.
Yeah, where it's if you have no bardic inspirations, you get 1 at the start of combat. It's wow, great.
Was that font of inspiration or something?
Yeah, that's at level 20. It's wow, a level 20 feature this dumb.
Yeah, actually, I have a story where there was a paladin who was like, "Oh yeah, I'm Oath of the Ancients or something like that, or Oath of Vengeance. Like when I get to 20th level, I can become an avatar of my god, blah blah blah." And he gets all these cool abilities. And then I think it was like the bard flips over to his level 20. He's like, "Oh, okay,
I
never
get an
mind."
inspiration.
I get to be very inspiring.
You also get to cast true polymorph, so
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's true.
Like
you get to be a dragon.
ninth level
And
spells.
wish. Oh yeah.
Power word kill for some reason.
And then you
As a
can
bard.
Oh, by the way, you also get a lot of magic. We forgot about that. But
bards can literally be anything they want, and that's so.
Oh yeah.
You can be a rogue if you're a bard. You can be anything except maybe a barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, you can go sword bard and go pretty heavy on the melee.
You're right, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's good multi-attack and stuff.
Yeah.
So
I have never played. I played a bard once in a one shot, and I never played a bard again. And
you need to, man.
Make so much music, and you were like, "Oh, you would do a good bard." And I'm like, "I think so. I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's good. The I think the only class like I'd be kind of like to play would probably be barbarian, just because there's not a good way to like be a social barbarian.
Right.
They don't have any kind of skills to help with that, and that's like one of my favorite parts of the game.
yeah,
So,
I think the way that a lot of barbarians play it is like being very intimidating and like scary and stuff like that, and then like beating people up and stuff. So that's kind of how they usually play it. But it's like I understand, like if you want to be,
you could be a nice barbarian.
Yeah. I've had one idea, and I played it for a one-shot that I was unfortunately not able to stick around the full way, that I played with Puffin, this barbarian that, or at least I think he was a barbarian, where he's just kind of there for the thrill of the fight. He's very friendly, but he's also like, "Oh, yeah, I don't care about good or bad, I just want a good fight," you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So, yeah. But yeah, I could see where you're getting at, where it's like, I gotta constantly be hitting things. Maybe I
gotta
don't
be constantly hitting things, and like I'm usually the last person that instigates combat. I'm like, but when I want to talk with him.
And barbarian doesn't really give you any like special stuff for talking.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
right. Yeah. The way I got around that was I don't remember in which one shot I did this, but I played a barbarian who was an elf, he was super.
Oh my god.
He was really nice. But when he got into a rage, he would start crying and whining. Yeah, it was, yeah.
Oh, it's like almost like his rage is a temper tantrum where he's like, "No!"
I actually like that a lot.
How dare you fight with me? You will die now. And he would cry.
You will die now.
You will die now. Peasant.
Yep. Oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
But anyway, so some actual questions that I had for the group, like how long have you guys been playing, like which edition, stuff like that? Like what's your history with them, with D&D and RPGs?
Who wants to go first?
Oh, Jess, you want to go first?
Oh, geez.
Just throwing her under the bus.
I think we've answered this before, actually, where like I've not been I'm not too I'm still a little bit new, still a little bit green, getting there, but I've been with 5th edition for like a year and a half now, and like I started D&D like tail end of 4th edition, where it was like petering out, and I did like I think 2 one-shots. That's about it. Just to dip my toe in it. I was very confused the entire time.
Aiden, what
they
are
were
you...
trying to hold my hand and it wasn't working.
Aiden, what are you drawing?
Oh, I'm drawing whatever.
All right.
Yeah, did you want to...
It's just... okay, sorry.
Should we should we do a prompt for the drawing
should we?
as well?
I was just
honestly, no,
whatever.
I'm just watching it. It's funny. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
All right, it works. All
I
right.
was just
Someone else go.
Yeah, Aiden, you go.
Okay, talking about TTRPG, like tabletop RPGs, I just played D&D 5e. I tried to enter in 3.5, but I'm a wine baby and I can't take a challenge. So I got out of there real fast. But after that, it's mostly just video games that I play RPG a lot. Mostly, Skyrim, Fallout New Vegas, all that stuff. That's mostly what got me into eventually D&D.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my experience with tabletop. It's not big at all. It's very small.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I actually started with with other games that were like close, kind of like Betrayal on House of the Hill. Betrayal on the haunted house.
You can Betrayal on the House on the Hill.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know what you're talking about though.
Syllables.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and like games like that are like really close to like, kind of getting into like dipping your toes into like role playing and kind of having a character but not quite. But yeah, and then kind of eventually, of course, you gotta build up to the D&D. Yeah, which is good.
Okay, cool. Joe?
I didn't actually start with D&D. My first exposure to tabletop RPGs was actually like a heavily modified 3.5 where set in the Mass Effect universe. And I played with, this was back when I was a camp counselor for a special needs camp. And, on our off days, we would hang out and when there weren't any kids. And one guy was like big into D&D. And, he showed me this. And I didn't actually make a character. He just gave me like a preset character sheet. And I played like an engineer or something. And I rip engineer, what's his name? Don't remember. Quarian engineer that was sniped through the head and died. But I didn't really understand what was going on. But I was like, all right, sure. But people were crying, so I thought, I guess things are happening. Because apparently it was the end of like a long-running campaign that he'd been playing with his friends that were also there. And
how sweet. They included you.
I mean, yeah, but there is another part of me that's like, people were crying, like, whoo's,
yeah.
what kind of game is this? Like,
Whoa.
Yeah,
kind of intense.
At first I was like, is this, like, was he like bullying them or something? Like, was
yeah.
Ooh.
But yeah, and then like, I mean, I'd heard of D&D before, but I never really knew what it was. And then when I finally made it to college, me and my friends, the hijack crew, we were walking down this trail and we were just talking about, hey, what would your fantasy race be? And then or fantasy class. And it's like, I would be like, I'm the rogue because I thought rogues were the ones with high charisma. Just because.
Oh, well, the dashing rogue.
Yeah, the dashing rogue. So, pop culture has conditioned me to think
Pop
that
culture
rogue.
got it
Meanwhile,
wrong.
you're like some gutter rat.
Yeah, which is why my first D&D character Rat was originally a rogue. But yeah, and then
Yeah.
I made Rat, and then from there I learned that I am a terrible role player, and and then
Oh, what?
yeah.
No, you're not. What?
well, not anymore, but I was back then.
Oh, you were.
But
yeah. Speaking of which, everyone's favorite, or not favorite, but first character. I think Adan.
Oh yeah,
you like
Adan, you got. Do you remember your first character?
Well, yeah, because I've been playing for a year only, so
So of course I remember the first character.
yeah, it was Discord. It was the first video I ever made was about Discord too, actually, because he had died recently. All my characters died, dude. Everything I touched just died.
everything they touch turns to ash.
Yeah,
Oh,
or falls from
so sad.
from very very high. And Discord was a high elf druid, and he was really cool. He was like very out there, dude. He would do all kinds of things. He would burn buildings down. He would get super drunk. He would smoke
Everyone's first character, very murder hobo, very.
every single mushroom he would find in hopes for it to be something cool. It was fun. It was a fun first experience.
Yeah.
I know that for me, my first character that I had made was actually in 4th edition. His name was Professor Solomon, and he had a high wisdom. I remember, and so because of that, he's a cleric. I called him Solomon, and I liked him. I thought it was really cool. The other thing is he had with the group dynamics, like a lot of the other players were playing their characters like very irresponsible kind of a thing. Like, you know, they get into trouble and stuff. And so I was like the parent kind of a thing who like was trying to make sure that people got out of trouble. And like if they got into trouble, I'd try and pull them out and stuff. There was also another joke where my character had gotten injured, like took 1 point of damage. And they said, "It's gone. He's gone. There's no getting him back." And it's like, I'm okay. I'm still here. And so from then on, for the entire rest of the campaign, I would say something, and then they'd say, "Man, it's like he's here with us. It's like I can hear him. Man, it's almost like he's here the whole time." It's like, yes, guys, I am here the whole time. And so
I'm not dead.
I'm not dead though.
There is another story which I have, which is that I also played as a rogue. That was the second character that I played. And that was the one where I went into a room and there was a white dragon that just shows up in the room. And the players left me. Like they just kind of closed the door.
Oh, good.
What nice
And
friends.
I got murdered. The dragon just like in one round just ripped me to pieces. And I actually, okay, I'm ashamed of this. I'm not proud of this, but I actually got mad as a player. Like, oh, why would you guys do that? Ah! And it was like, and it's stupid. Like I shouldn't have gotten mad, you know, or something. And it was like immediately after I had a little outburst, like, you guys, like, why'd you do that? I felt bad about it, and so I apologized about it. But anyway, that was one of the things that made me realize, like, I, you know, shouldn't get mad at it's just a game, you know. And from then on, I've kept that in kind of my mindset of like, look, it's a game. Don't get, you know, whatever.
You can
happens,
always roll up another character.
Yeah, and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, that was like the one time I was like really not happy about how the game came out, and I felt really bad about it. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
And
yeah.
Actually, what was funny also was that they'd closed the door because they didn't want to get hit with the breath weapon, and their plan was to go around a second room to try and flank it or something. So they actually had a plan in mind. It's just I also
you were left out of that plan.
Yeah, I just also got murdered.
Oh no,
That's so sad. He didn't deserve that.
Jeez, I don't even. I like barely remember my first character because it wasn't really a character that I had made. It was like a pre-gen character sheet. So I was like, so DM was like, "Listen, you look really confused. Here you go." And it was like, it was a bard. I remember that. I think it was like a half elf bard, and it was like, I think she had a mechanical eye, and we had to go to like a floating island, and that's about all I remember. But like, oh man, good times. Thankfully, I don't think I've had any outbursts like that. I hope not. I hope I've not had any outbursts like that. I think I would have remembered, hopefully. Has anyone else had any? I don't know.
Oh man,
drama.
I'm the saltiest player in this room, dude. I'm not ashamed of saying so. I'm super salty, and yeah, I've had like we had one shot where we did a PvP, and in the first round, I was murdered. I was a bard. It was my first time playing bard. And the Hexblade Warlock got a natural 20. Santino got a natural 20, and I died. And I was super salty about it, and everybody was like, "Hey, dude, it's okay." It's like, no, it's not okay. I wanted to play a bard, and I can now. So yeah.
Oh well,
But it was okay after that. We made up. It's just a small thing. We are friends.
Hugs and kisses.
Yeah, it has become a thing of every time a character of mine dies, it's hugs and kisses because they know how salty I get about things.
Oh.
I've not had an outburst. I wouldn't say an outburst, but just like a little kerfuffle. And not as a player, but as a DM when I kind of got frustrated at another player a couple of times. And now I care less about it now. Back then it was more like I had a bad case of you're not playing the way I want you to. But nowadays, nowadays I'm just kind of whatever. But like, the first instance of kerfuffle was like they were taking a long time, and I got really frustrated because they were taking a long time, like every turn. And then like eventually, I think I just kind of went like, you had like all the other players' turns and characters' turns to figure out how this works, And then they're like, no, I just want to kind of read like how, and I was like, you had so many other turns. And then we kind of yelled at each other.
That's why you don't get mad. That's all you have to do is just like start putting a timer, like a nice little hourglass, just beep.
I actually did establish, I actually did want to establish that rule. Like at the beginning, I was like, we're going to have this rule where if 60 seconds you don't perform something, you are paralyzed of whatever. And then.
Yeah, you don't, your action is gone. You just sit there scared.
But then like, I don't know. I guess I chickened out and didn't like enforcing it.
Yeah. No, I understand because sometimes I'll do like I don't really do this, but I've like other people have done this, and I know this is what happens where they think of some punitive thing and then forget it or forget to enforce it. Where they're like, "You're gonna get -2 to all defenses until blah 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 blah," and then 10 seconds later they forget it, and then they don't do the penalties or whatever.
Yeah. And the second instance, was it? Oh, the second instance was when there was an argument over how a spell worked, and then I just kind of like raised my voice. It was Ice Knife, and they were trying to throw it at a monster, and there was another character, a player character next to the monster, right? And for anyone who doesn't know how Ice Knife works, you throw a knife, it jabs into someone, and then it explodes in an AoE and causes cold damage. And the player was like, can I throw the ice knife so that it goes into the monster so that it only explodes inside them? And I was like, that's not how that works. It says cold damage all around them, 5 feet. It doesn't say whether or not it's in them. And then we got in an argument, and then I was like, no, that's not how it works. And it was
that's rough.
it was some bitterness. Like, it didn't escalate any more than that, but there was clear bitterness. It wasn't like a discussion of like, hey, no, I'm just not gonna, no. Like, I think I could have handled that better. I think I could have been more diplomatic about it. Like,
I think if I was the DM in that, I mean, that's a rough situation. If I were like in your shoes and a player was trying to argue something like that, like they were really, like it's different. Were you trying to do it where it was like theater of the mind, or did they have a mat and they could see it?
They had a mat and they could see it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if they could see it, then that's a little bit different. But
yeah, because they were like, no, but it explodes inside them, and I was like, but the spell says that it affects them in 5 feet, regardless of where the knife is.
Yeah.
But I think nowadays, I'm more like, as I've played and like been thinking about DM, I've gotten more experience. I think I would have had them roll something for it, like maybe a strength or something.
So.
Yeah, even if it's like the odds are. Even if the odds are bad, like you could just have them, roll this one. But
I want to try and say
really high.
Yeah, honestly, I want to try and say yes more often. Basically,
honestly, I think it's okay to just be like, no, that's like this is how this is going to work, or this is my interpretation of it, because I do think it's like, I do understand that sometimes people want to roll for it, and then sometimes you just got to be like, look, that's not how this works, or
right, where they really try to start fudging the rules. Because I do, like you give a level, and then they start.
I do know players who they want to roll to break the rules, or something like that. And the problem is that sometimes there are certain players who, if you allow that, they'll just be like, okay, can I get 20 rolls to see if I break the rules or something? And so there's a period of time I got
20 investigation checks.
Yeah, and
to
also.
Find a thing.
It's another case of also like asking for a feature, asking for a thing that's a feature of another class, because sorcerers could do that, but they were not playing a sorcerer. It's like careful spell or something.
Also,
Also,
my philosophy when it comes to this is that sometimes it's like, if I have, okay, this is the way it's going to work, I explain to the player, this is my reasoning. This is the way it's going to work because of this reason. And then they explain their reasoning, and hopefully we come to some kind of a meeting. But it's like, there's a point in the discussion where it's like, I want this to happen because I don't want to get hurt, or I don't want this thing to happen. And it's like, I'm saying, look, this is the way it's going to go because of this. And it's like, if they have a reason for why they want it to work a certain way, or they have like an explanation, they can explain it to me, I can try and work it in. But if they want something and they just want it because they don't want other people to have it or something, or I feel like there's a bad reason, then I am going to have to kind of argue with them a little bit. And hopefully we can get some kind of a meeting, some kind of a compromise. If we can't, it's rough.
I think I could have done better with explaining my reason, because I kind of did. I just kind of said, like I said, there was a lot of bitterness in the argument instead of having like a reasonable one. So I feel like I am also to blame in this situation.
Also, as far as salty players, I have a story as well, which is when we were playing Star Wars and I had my brother in the game, and in a storyline we were kind of flying, and my brother. So here's the thing. My brother really did not play Dungeons & Dragons or tabletop RPGs, and I had gotten into them, and I was like, "Oh, dude, you got to play with us sometime." And he's like, "Okay." And so he decides to play with us, and I mean, this group had problems. Like we had issues, let's just say. There was like arguing and stuff like that. There was short tempers. There were storyline issues. We had a lot of issues in our group. But one problem we also had was that we were flying our ships in game in the story, and my brother's ship got shot, and so he got disabled. And in D&D, you can just like healing word, and then someone's back in the game. But we don't have healing word in Star Wars. And none of us are pilots or engineers, so we can't fix a ship. And so we still had a mission to do, so we just kind of left because we're on a time crunch, and he's still on the ship. And so it was, and I think it was also that thing of like, we were playing in that style where it's like a round takes about 30 minutes or an hour. And so 4 rounds pass, and so it's 2 hours later, and he's just in the ship, not able to do anything. And so, and it was a very common problem, unfortunately, in a lot of our space fights or our we would play games where like someone's ship would get shot and they'd get disabled and there's no one who could fix them, or they think one of the other players is going to fix them. Like, oh, on my turn, I have other stuff to do because I'm an important person. I got to shoot this enemy, but other players are going to fix this ship, and so, or the fixing takes a while because it's fixing a ship, and so there was, and probably there's some mechanics that probably allows for like quick fix or something, but we didn't know those, or we didn't have the ability. So it was, my brother played with us, and it was just like, he was so not happy. He was, which I would not be happy either. And so and it was so funny because like he played in that game, he was miserable. And I was miserable for him, but as a little brother, I also thought it was hilarious how miserable he was. And
as a little brother, I can confirm it's great watching
as an older brother. Little brothers love that shit.
As a younger sister, I can't confirm.
Wait, you're all younger siblings?
Yeah, I think we're all babies. I think you're the only older one.
Babies. Aww.
I'm the only brother.
Well, as a younger brother, I will tell you, Adan, be nice to your younger brother.
I am. He's just
don't be a bully.
Yeah, let him be embarrassing. It doesn't reflect on you.
No, of course not.
Give him lots of hugs.
Well, maybe not do that.
Tender loving care.
He says I embarrass him.
He can get hugs from other people.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time we move on from the salt.
Okay, cool.
Got the salt out there.
Yeah, we got the salt out.
We got the salt. Yeah.
What?
I've been very blessed to not have any players that have been too much of a stink. I think they're all beautiful babes.
Yeah,
I love them.
Okay, I'll deal with a smaller issue or a smaller question, which is, what's the ideal number of player size? Like, do you guys have a preference for like player size at a game?
Mine is 4 or 5, both playing and DMing. Like, that's my max.
That's always optimal.
4 or 5 players, or 4 or 5 just people.
Yeah, 4 or 5 players.
Like, does
4 or
that
5
include
players? Yeah.
Okay.
Either spectrum is good, but I'm used to having a chunky group. It honestly, it depends. Like sometimes you have players that are like observer players, and it's healthy to like have a little bit more bulk to the group, because if you have all observer players and they all sit around and like are silent while you have one active player making the decisions, it's not good. It's a 4-player dynamic.
Yeah, it's like a healthy diet.
Yeah, you gotta. honestly, like I would be, I'm totally cool with having like 7 to 8 players. If it's like a dynamic like that, where a lot of them, like half of them are observers and half of them are actives. So.
I will say that I run when I run like public games or something, and 7 is like the max for AL, and it's nice because a lot of times in AL, people are shy and stuff, and so you get strangers, and so having 7 is kind of nice because then they can kind of work off of each other a little bit, and everyone gets to contribute a little bit, but no one wants to take center stage.
Right.
But I was running a homebrew a while ago, and they had, I think it was like 7 players, and the problem is that in homebrew games, everyone's very lively and active, and everyone,
Oh no!
And so because of that, it's that thing of like everyone's making jokes, and I think it's nice. I think they had fun. I really think that they were able to work off of each other, but it was the thing of like it was very close to anarchy.
Yeah.
There was just so much people.
Oh god, yeah. If you have too many actives, it's like the top of the whole castle topples down.
There is another thing where I know. So AL, they have an upper limit for 7. There are some places that when they run Dungeons and Dragons do not have that upper limit, and a lot of publicly run Dungeons and Dragons games, a lot of people want to be players, and there's not as many GMs, and so I've heard of some stories that there are some locations where I GM, around where I GM, where they'll be running around with like 10, 11 players at one table, and the players all complain about that of like it's just too many. You cannot run at that size.
Right.
And I remember I ran a Dread game, and that game was, I think it was 12 players was that game. And if you've ever played Dread, the way it works is you stack a bunch of you run a Jenga tower.
Tetris blocks? Yeah.
Yeah,
you have a Jenga.
And then
not Tetris.
Whenever you do something dangerous or you do something, you pull a block, and then once you pull the entire thing, it collapses and that character's dead. And so that was fun. It was nice. It was just that like, oh, by the way, this was also at a party, a barbecue, and everyone had been drinking heavily. So
good.
You're running around with
so everyone's dead.
12 players, and they're all heavily drunk. And there was like 1 or 2 of the players who were just shouting swear words over other people's turns.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Like maybe drunken role play only works sometimes, not with a lot of players.
And then some of the
Maybe
players
just good
had never played an RPG, so you had to teach them how to play.
Oh god!
So it was actually
rough.
kind of fun. It was actually kind of fun, but it was one of those things where it takes so long to go around to everyone's turn that it's you spend most of your time just watching other people do a turn. And there was even someone who I remember on Twitter, I get messages from people on occasion, and someone had asked me like, "Hey, I'm having issues running this game. There's like 12 players in it." I'm like, "There's your problem right there."
There's you gotta be like, guys, I either split it into 2 groups or just like, I don't know, be like, guys, I'm sorry, I can't do this.
I think it's probably best, like, if it gets that big, like, you have that many people that are interested, be, like, split into 2 groups, and for me personally, what I would do is I'd do, like, a Saturday-Sunday thing of, like, you guys are gonna come. I realize I'm the oddball out because I have the time to do that, but most people don't.
I'm like,
I would split.
running so many games. But yeah, that totally makes sense, though. But yeah, got some more questions for us?
Okay, yeah.
Wait, no, Adan didn't.
Actually,
Adan.
Oh wait, Adan didn't do it.
What's your ideal size?
Ideal size.
I usually listen to your videos, guys, when I draw.
And so you were just thinking.
I get in the zone, dude. I get in the zone. But yeah, I think 5 is great. I have my personal campaign I'm running. We have 5 people too, and that's very chill. I think it just lets me focus on each individual person a lot more, and lets them have their moments too, without interrupting each other. But also it's a really good number so they can have interactions too. So yeah, 5, maybe 4.
It's also a good size, like a 5. I think 5 is the golden number because like you can still run it with like 4 people and like, or even 3 people. Actually, so if someone doesn't show up,
yeah, that's actually,
so it's like. It's beautiful.
That's one of the reasons why I prefer going a slightly larger group, is because that way if 1 or 2 people can't show up, you can still run. Sometimes I've tried to set up groups where it's like, oh, we're just going to be meeting weekly, and it's 3 people, and the second 1 or 2 people can't show up, it's like, look, I don't want to.
Yeah, it's pretty important, yeah.
I have
Yeah, what's
run
the smallest? Yeah,
I have run a duet game with like one player. I don't know if any of you guys have run it.
No, I was curious if anyone tried that, 'cause it sounds so weird to me.
It's kind of fun, and the other thing is the storyline can be like really, really like particular. But like the person that I ran it for was like a friend of mine who we just hang out together on a regular basis, and so it's like it's got to be some like there are some friends that I have where it's like, oh, we hang out in a large group, and then they come, and then there are some friends it's like it's just two people, it's fine. And so it's got to be like, if you're going to run a duet game, it's someone who like that player can hold his own, like he can hold his own conversation and it's not going to be awkward.
Yeah. You need a heavy role-playing player for that.
Exactly. That's exactly what's needed, yeah.
Because
if you get crickets, it's like, oh,
yeah, because I've both run and played in a one-on-one, and you know, it was fun, but that was because both me and the participant, because we were DM and player for each other's games, we were both heavy role players. So yeah, I would say it can work, but you need an active player. You can't have an audience member for that.
Yeah. Totally agree, 100%.
Okay, so next question. All right, which one do I want as the next question? Okay, I'll let you guys take a pick. There's one which is on tone issues, like a serious versus silly game. Another which is on any pet peeves of combo strategies or builds. There is another, where was it? Oh, there was another one on fudging the dice. Like, do you fudge dice or not?
Ooh,
so
yeah, that's a good one.
Which question do you guys want? It's silly, so tone, fudging dice, or pet peeves?
I'm okay with anything, really.
I think I answered this once because like right after we had our one shot. So like with the tone one, as far as that goes, and I'll just quickly answer it again, I guess.
Okay.
Unless someone else wants a different question. Either way.
No, you can answer it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I feel like when you mean problems with tone, do you mean just like the players aren't enjoying themselves because of tone, or the
actually, I think I could actually answer this, not to immediately take away.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Because I have run into a problem. I think I know what they mean. A problem with tone where the players are not fitting the tone of the campaign that you set.
Like trying like jokesters and Strahd, like Evil Dread campaign where you're the Shadow Fell or something. Yeah. And you're like, ha, this is fun.
Yeah, noises. Absolutely. I would say, like, of course, this is the answer, the coup de grace answer to a lot of things, which is talk to your group.
Session 0, set it up, man.
Yeah, set it up. Session 0.
You gotta let people know, like. And all right.
Yeah. If it's all the players, then ask them if that's the tone they want to go and shift it that way. If the answer is yes. If it's just a small group of players, like just like a handful, like one or two, whereas the majority are trying to fit the tone, then like talk to them and talk with the group and see if everyone agrees. Like, hey, let's try and make it more serious or silly, depending on what the majority is. And
for me personally, I will also say that like even doing like session 0 stuff and talking about it, like as stuff comes up, like there's got to be some like, hey, like you're kind of going this way, like some talking as it happens. Because I do know, like in a session 0, like I love session 0s. I think they're great to discuss the problems. It's like they can't cover every single, problem that comes up, and there's still going to be stuff where like, oh, I want a serious game. Like, what do you mean? Like, what defines a serious game? And then even like you can go into detail, but it's like there's going to be a lot of wiggle room during the game as well to be like the player starts doing something, and then you as a GM, I think. For me personally, I like actually doing some meta talk about like, your character is going to punch the king in the face. Like he's kind of writing himself out of the story at this point. Like, what's your plan? He's
going to be arrested and mayhaps executed,
or something. And so, yeah. So,
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like with tone, I mean, it's a little bit in my opinion that like, it should be like. Players and the relationship of a player and a GM, it should be a little bit like a marriage where you got to have a little bit of give and compromise.
Absolutely.
Where it's like if it's your friends and you love them, you might in your heart of hearts want to be like, I want the most serious, like, Lord of the Rings adventure possible, but is it fun?
Mm-hmm.
You got to tell yourself, is it fun with your friends, and are they having fun? And you got to be like, you got to take a step back and just be like, you can always approach them and just kind of say, like, hey, love the fun. Can we, like, be serious a little bit? Just approach them halfway. But again, like, let them have fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Just a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Because,
For me, as far as serious versus silly, that's something that I've kind of had flip-flopped back and forth on and kind of had to think about, because I know that, the dice come up and the dice will sometimes cause humor to be added into the game when you really don't want it to. And then in addition, like, I could be running as a serious game, but then sometimes they're making jokes and stuff. And so it's like, and although personally, I don't necessarily like running a serious game myself. I like it to be a little bit silly. And so it's not really an issue for me per se. The only thing is that sometimes a player will want a serious scene where it's like they're talking in a deep tone or something. And I kind of I have to rely on the players to respect that and recognize, okay, he's having a scene. And if one of the players is trying to butt into his serious moment with some silliness, I kind of have to like, okay, you're going to do that. Let's get back to this thing. Like, just kind of have to ignore them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on the screen.
No, just don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
What were the other two questions? Because I think they were still pretty good as well.
Yeah,
there's some other good questions.
Yeah, the
too.
other one was on fudging dice, or like,
oh yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Do you fudge dice? It's as far as when you GM do,
or like another way of phrasing this question is like, are there any adjustments that are made when you're playing? Like, how do you? I guess that's another thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
That's so dirty. Like, my players might hear this.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like, if the answer is yes, you can't say it, and if the answer is no, well then I guess you wouldn't be ashamed of saying it.
I'll be 100% honest. I mean, I know this is like probably bad, but I do open roll everything. I'm like, I feel like the situation feels more perilous because it's like the players do feel that it does come down to the dice, and I'm not trying to save them, but it depends on your players. Like, my particular players are, a lot of them are GMs, and they like a challenge, and so they want a challenge. So, but that's different for each group. So I would say to that fudging rolls thing, depends on your players. Like, if your players are like, down to the grindstone, like they have optimized their characters, they want to go, I would, open roll things to make sure everything is like on the table, don't hold back.
So that their like planning doesn't go to waste.
Yeah, they feel that that everything is honest.
Yeah, but I mean, people don't really know this, but in video games, percentages are kind of rigged in favor of the player.
Yes, games are designed specifically to put the player in power. Like,
yeah, and that's what I would say. Like especially you think about adjustments with video games. Like, if someone's failing, then you held back. So if you have like new players, fudge the hell out of those dice.
Mm-hmm. I remember actually hearing there was I think it was like Jeremy Crawford. He was talking, like, someone had submitted a question about like, why don't more enemies and like monsters and stuff cast the spell Counterspell? Like, could you have a monster that has like Counterspell or certain abilities or something?
It's not fun.
Yeah.
And what he basically, that was his thing, is like, look, from the player's perspective, they don't know what spell's coming out or something. They cast it, they got to make a roll. There's the drama and stuff like there. But on the flip side, it's not like the GM is not having fun. It does not give the GM fun counterspelling all the players' abilities per se. Or it feels like the other thing is that the players, like, the way that the game is technically, air quotes, supposed to be run is that the players don't know what spells are coming out when they're counterspelling, and so there's a surprise. and they got the roll sometimes. But the idea is that the GM always knows what the players are casting, and that's the way that dungeon mastering works. Is the dungeon master always knows what the players are doing, and that's the way that the system, air quotes, is supposed to work. And so it's not. It feels different when it's from his side. And so you have to take into consideration that certain abilities are fun for the players to use on the monsters, but they're not as fun when the monsters are using it back on the players.
Yeah.
Yep. It could be like, you don't want to be a buzzkill. You want to make the players feel a little bit powerful.
The one thing, and I like that you brought up the comparison about video games, Adan. This is another thing about video games as well that I think ties into D&D very well, is that the least fun mechanics in video games are the ones that stop you from playing. And that's why like being counterspelled in D&D feels so bad, because it's like you didn't do anything.
Oh, it's like, yeah, especially you think about video games too, is like, normally a player has like, he gets that damage vulnerability after you get hit, and like, but if the monsters had that, that would suck.
Yeah. Because you gotta wait.
Yeah. That's why fudging dice, it's more of a, if you do it in moderation, it's okay. And if you do it all the time, it can hinder a game.
Yeah, it can feel like, like there's no challenge. Like, what's the point?
There is a few things also as far as fudging the dice. One is that there's a big difference when the players are deciding to do something and you're fudging the dice intentionally to stop them from accomplishing their task. Versus
that feels
where
dirty.
The players want to do something and then you fudge it so that way it happens. Like that. Honestly,
subtly lowering the DC.
Or something like the players are.
Yeah. Or writing a book, rather, if the players are messing up your story.
Yeah, and I remember there was this one GM who used to fudge the dice so much that he'd present us with a problem, and I just kind of okay, it's going to get solved one way. Mm-hmm. Maybe someone's going to get hurt, maybe someone isn't. Because it was just like, he would just kind of decide when we would solve it or when we would get out of this problem, and so it was very like, once you realize that the problems, didn't have any impact on the storyline, it was like, okay, I'll just have the other players solve it. They'll figure it out. Like, there's no need for me to get involved with this. But also for me, as far as fudging the dice and everything, I roll above the table. I don't have a GM screen. I'll just kind of roll it and, okay, that's the number. But the thing is that for me, there are a lot of adjustments that I do in terms of the hit points and saves and stuff, because I am from the philosophy that, like, sometimes I'll look in the book and it's like, oh, I need a level 3 monster. And there's a monster that is level 3 that's not the one that I want. Or there'll be a monster that I want that's not level 3. And so what I'll have to do is I'll just take a higher level monster or lower level and then have to kind of adjust it up or down. So that way it's kind of around where it's like it's going to be able to challenge the party or fight against them. And so I will do up and down kind of adjustments with their abilities. So that way they can fight.
There's more that you can do than just when it says like, fudging dice. Like, you don't necessarily have to fudge the dice. You can do other adjustments that are a little bit more subtle.
That's why monsters have hit dice, so you can actually change their health depending on, like, you can throw the hit dice and you can take away some if you want to.
Yeah, because it's the way that I interpret it when it comes to the health is that it'll say, okay, here's the average health, and then here's the hit dice and the rolling and everything. And so I feel like, they kind of want it around that area, but if it's slightly lower, slightly above average, I think that's, it's still fair. It still gives the monster flavor. Like, if you have a 100 hit point monster and you take it down to like 2 hit points, players can tell, like, okay, this thing is way too easy. And then especially if you do the reverse, but I feel like if it's around the same area, it still gives that monster, like, if it's 100 hit points, if you lower it to like 90 or 100 or raise it to 110, like, players don't really notice.
Yeah. And I mean, you're the DM, you can control anything that happens in the world. If you want to, the monster they're fighting might be hurt, so it has less HP than the usual. Or it can have a magic armor, so its AC is higher,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I do that a lot too, where intelligent monsters have a morale system, and if the fight is going badly or or if they're hurt, maybe they'll just run away or so. Maybe it's like
absolutely.
they don't want to die.
Yeah.
So.
With kobolds too, you can do that a lot of them putting traps where they fight. They're being more scummy and they being so many numbers, and they can use more complex tools. It can become a really fun time playing battles with monsters that will run away from you, and they will put on traps. They will have places they want you to follow them to fight, because it's advantages for them.
I think we did a good job of answering that like a true politician.
Yeah. It's like, really? Is this there's another way?
There's really no like
there's no definitive
one
way.
answer, to that question. Maybe.
What was the
Who knows?
third question you asked?
The third was on, I don't even know if we're going to answer, because I think we kind of talked about this a little bit, was any pet peeves of combos or strategies or builds.
Oh yeah, we said like depends on the game. If the group likes min-maxing, then like make a game around that and roll outwards so that there's no like fudging, and let the dice lie where they roll.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, also as far as combo strategies or builds, like for me personally, I really don't have any problem with any combo strategies or builds. Like I feel like 5th edition...
anything could be countered. I mean, like you just have to think about... You just have to change your perspective on how you maybe orient combat, orchestrate combat.
There was, like, I think... I did have a little bit of a problem a while ago where someone had made a character that had like a starting AC of like 23. They were using a homebrew class, and there was a shield spell. They had an AC of like 28 or something, and they were like level 4 or something. And I was just like, that is too ridiculous, because a lot of the enemies would have a +5 to hit, and so they like, even if they would crit, they'd still technically miss. I think you can, or they'd have to crit in order to hit or something, and so it made the fights a little bit dull against them. But that, once again, the problem was they had a homebrew class.
Right, it's not official. So
like,
when you're getting into that, you just gotta tread lightly and be like, really, really sit down, really look at it, and be like, okay.
Yeah. So the problem also was that the AC was so high that like I would have to use monsters that had a higher to hit value. And the problem is that other players were running around with ACs of like 14, and so if the enemies had a +10 to hit, it would be like, it would be ridiculous. Yeah, and so it was a little bit ridiculous, and so I was like, okay, we're gonna have to. That was the only one that was a little bit of a problem, but everything else I think is mostly fine.
Yeah, homebrew is problematic.
Yeah, it's very difficult to have it be balanced, really.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why I much prefer like when the DM is homebrew rather than the player's homebrew, because if it goes wrong, then it's like, okay, it's the DM's own fault.
I'm a horrible human being. I do allow homebrew. So, I usually I'll take what they give me and I'll export out something like, this is what you're using.
Well, that leads us into our next question on homebrewing. What do you allow? What do you not allow? What do you feel about homebrewing?
Yeah, definitely. Like if they give me something from like D&D Wiki, that's like, I kind of like take it, copy pasta into a document, edit it. This is what you're using. So they can use it, but it's like, I gotta check all the bases first.
Balance, yeah. My campaigns were usually more one-shots too, are usually more comedic, more fun, more easygoing, because the rest of the DMs in my group of friends are very serious, very good DMs. Like Rodrigo, my main DM, one of my best friends and the best DM I know, he follows a lot of Puffin Forest and Sibashi, and just like, oh, I'm gonna do this and that, and oh, that was a great idea, and he really brings a lot of reality and continuity to its world. So I'm more of the, hey guys, let's hang out and literally meet a silver dragon in the second get together, and it's more of a fun time, easygoing. So I usually just take any homebrew they want. Maybe I edit something that might be way too powerful, that would take away from the enjoyment of the others. But usually I just allow literally everything.
Yeah.
Sorry. Continue.
I was like, yeah, if they're jazzed to play it and they're excited, like I don't want to poo-poo on what they want. So, but normally my players are like not too power hungry. So
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, I've been blessed
Oh,
with
no,
that.
my friends they want to be the best.
Yeah.
that there was.
The one which sometimes what I'm concerned with when someone's looking at like a homebrew game, also I see what you're drawing, god damn it. But the thing is that as far as homebrew, like sometimes someone will just take a lower powered character and just superpower them. Like, hey, this thing says I get a D12 for hit points. What if I got 3d12 or something? Or it's like they just took like something that's powerful and then made it more powerful. Or there was this one class that someone was interested in doing where it was just like all the most powerful abilities, but what if there were even more powerful? And I was like, look,
that's like a flat out no when it comes. Like I don't have flat out no's, but I've also been lucky enough to not run into that. But that for me would be a flat out no. It's like unless it's like clearly underpowered like Ranger, but like Ranger's getting revised soon, so. But I don't think there's really anything like that where it's like easy numerical fix. Like I don't think there's anything like that, luckily. But
yeah, the thing is that when someone introduces a homebrew thing or some kind of custom content, it has to be coming from a position of like, ooh, this is going to add a lot to the narrative, or it's got some kind of an ability that's like really cool that I want to use or something. From that perspective, I think it can be interesting. You can kind of work it in. And once again, it's like if someone just wants to take an ability and make it more powerful, it would have to be an underpowered thing that they brought up to be normal. If you take something that's normal and works perfectly fine and then suddenly just supercharge it, then it's an issue. And I also have a philosophy for me in a lot of my games that if you're bringing homebrew material, it's considered like playtest. And anytime you have like playtest material, the idea is you bring it, we're playing through it. And if any problems come up or there's any kind of a rules question, we're going to have to adjudicate. And if it turns out it's not working, you might have to switch feats or switch abilities with something else. I don't want to have any like gotchas of I had this thing, but secretly I had also gotten this other thing, but I didn't tell him that. Like, I don't want to see, you got to tell me like how your abilities are going to work together. Like if you just said like, hey, Ben, what if I had this thing that said that I could do cold damage and fire damage at the same time or something, and then suddenly, and it's like on paper it doesn't seem that bad, but you secretly want this other ability that says when they're together they do double damage, or something like that. Then that's when it's just a flat like no.
But it fits my character.
But it's my character. It's what my character would do.
No, you don't. It fits. It's explained by their backstory.
Yeah,
they were like part fire, like.
I mean, that's very much a DM versus player mentality, where the DM is not there to help you play. It's your enemy, and you have to destroy him at every turn, I think.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Ugh, gross.
My stance on it is, like, when I'm a player, there's not much I can do. It's up to the DM. Like, I would prefer, like, I still have, when I was talking about my my bad habit of they're not playing the way I want, I still have a little bit of that. I'm trying to get better about it, about not caring about how people play. But sometimes whenever another player has homebrew stuff, I'm like, I can see this going wrong. But I'm like the Batman of homebrew, where I had one really bad experience with homebrew with another player, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna be very strict about homebrew now.
Oh.
Yeah. So like,
oh snap.
Basically, the gist of it is, imagine. Never. I don't know if I should say it, just in case if they watch.
You don't want to accidentally out someone. Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. But like, my thing is, when I'm a player, I just kind of I try to just not care. It's whatever. If it like messes things up, then that's on the DM. But if I'm DMing, I'm gonna ask the player, D&D. A 5e anyway, the one that I play, there's a lot of mechanics, there's a lot of different classes and combinations, and like with the expansion book, with Xanathar's Guide and like all the other things, there's a lot of different things we can do. Look at those, there's bound to be something that you're looking for, kind of the gist of what you want, you know? Like, if you want to summon a weapon or, like, whatever, there's plenty of classes that we could probably flavor it that way.
Reflavor. Yeah, the art of reflavoring.
I love
is
reskinning,
the
reflavoring,
key.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's look at the core book, the official books first, and if there is absolutely no way that we can't reflavor something to fit what you want, then I will look at some homebrews and do some, like you were saying, Jess, do some editing. But that's after I'm very adamant about there's there's something in the rule books that will allow you to do what you want.
Okay.
Honestly, I'm even more like I'm very hesitant on any kind of like homebrew classes. Races, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like normally, like a race, like you know, you can. It's very easy to adjust that. But a class,
Oh, yeah. The other,
I would. Yeah.
One of the other things I realized also is that if you introduce a monster and it's like not balanced properly or it has an issue, that monster is going to last a few rounds and it's going to die and you're going to get someone else in there. But when a player character is having an issue, like you're going to be running that person through an entire campaign. Like if you have a problem with that, like you got to deal with that early on.
Like their AC is 20 at level 4.
Yeah, or something. The other consideration was that as far as homebrew, I had one of the players was playing as a Warforged, and the Warforged, like the concept, I actually like. I like the idea of it's someone who's like robotic, and it's you know, they're kind of this, I don't know, like an android or something, or they're some kind of metal construct that can move around and act and stuff. Okay, here's a problem though, and let me just say right now, I love the Warforged players I've had; they've been great.
I have a DM that's the same way. We're very hesitant to Warforged just because probably what you're about to say.
I absolutely hate the mechanics for Warforged. I love all the players that I've had that have played Warforged, but I just do like I've had so many problems. And the reason why is because technically, according to the rules, what a Warforged is it is a person that looks like a robot. So they eat food, like they are not required to eat food, but they have like digestive system to consume it. And there's so many different questions that come up whenever someone plays a Warforged, like, okay, like, can I detach my arm and reattach it? Technically, no. Like, they get poisoned, you know, or something. They're immune to disease. Like, they don't sleep. You'll have a succubus and they do a charm spell on them. It's like, how does that work? And it's like, technically, according to the rules, it works. Or they'll be an enemy that does a bleed attack, and it's like, how does this work? How am I bleeding? You know, or something. Or there'll be a Medusa that does a gaze attack, and it's like, why does the gaze work? I'm not, you know, or something. Or they'll get cursed, and there's so many questions that come up. And they've always been such a problem because a lot of times you'll be playing through a game, there'll be a fight that comes up, and there'll be a question of how is this adjudicated, and you got to make a ruling on it, and there's a lot of problems. And there was one game where there were these cookies or these things that had cure light wounds on them, where you could eat a cookie and then it'd give you cure light wounds.
Oh yeah, how does he eat a cookie?
And it's like technically, according to the rules, they have digestive systems. They have a mouth, they can chew, they can eat, they can swallow it, but yet they're not required to eat food. So it's like they have the option to eat food. And the problem also is that sometimes you're talking to the Warforged player and they want to get the benefits of being a Warforged, but they don't want some of the downsides. So it's like, I don't want to bleed and I don't want to get seduced, but yet I also want to be able to reproduce and have sex and eat food.
It's the conflict. It's the conflict of mechanics versus the actual like flavor.
I've run into that several times with because they can't smell. And then sometimes I'm rolling a check for smell and having all the players, and then suddenly, like, of course, the Warforged or the, like, Construct or whatever rolls high, and it's like, oh.
Yeah. And then, in me personally, I've luckily not been in that situation, but me personally, I would forego the quote-unquote realism and the immersion and be like, well, just for the sake of simplicity, we're going with what the mechanics say. It might not make sense because you're a Warforged and you're technically a construct, but you are bleeding now because that's what the mechanics say, just to simplify things.
Yeah, or something. And it was like, it's not until, and the reason why it gets confusing is because people have, when they play Warforged, they have this mental image in their head that I am a robot or I'm an android. but really you're a person who just happens to look like an android, or you happen to look, and so that's what causes confusion. And it's like, it's completely understandable why it would cause confusion, because it's like, it'd be like if you were a ranger and they said like, you get a pet bird, and it's like, what if I don't want a bird? What if I want a scorpion? It's like, well, you could just call your bird Scorpion, you know, or something. And it's like,
yeah, and then it's like, what? Yeah, very much so. And also, like, we ran in, like, realized some of these problems too, where like built into modules, like it's very mild spoilers with TOA coming up. There's a puzzle that requires you to breathe, and a person can get stuck in there. What does a Warforged do? And it's like,
Sorry guys, my internet went out.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, I thought we thought you were just being quiet this whole time.
Oh no, I just died for a second there. Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Back to back.
Sorry, if you want to reply to something,
Well,
we're
that was
talking
fine.
about
I just went in an
Warforges.
entire rant against the Warforged,
About
talking
Warforges.
about them, and I feel really bad in retrospect, because the entire rant was like 2 minutes or something.
It's cool, man.
I mean, I
So
should
good.
get a Warforged PC, but it's fine, Puffin.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean,
No, I still would totally allow them. Like, I think they're great. I think they can create interesting plot hooks. But, like, yeah, I understand your problem.
And it's like,
Totally
I
agree.
actually like Warforged. I really think they're kind of cool, and I like playing as a robot, but it's just, there's so many questions that come up, like mechanics-wise, with how their stuff integrates with the world.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I made a Warforged because I really like the idea of exploring more character arcs with them. Like, my Warforged is a Juggernaut, which means he's 420 pounds. So he's very heavy and he's very tall. But he has the mind of a kid, a 14-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
So he's trying to. It's very inspired by Full Metal Alchemist. So he's trying to figure out if he is an actual kid, because he doesn't remember much of his life. So, and he's a cleric, so he's being guided by a goddess, you know, and it's all these things. So I think that's a very good aspect of the Warforged that could be explored, at least as an NPC, you know.
Yeah, for sure. There's like an interesting like perspectives you can also do on humanity and stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What does it take to be human?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, but I do understand from a DM perspective why Warforged can be so dangerous. Actually.
Yeah.
You're immune to a lot of traps.
Can I say, speaking of a thing, like you mentioned a thing that's difficult for a DM to deal with, can I say like a semi-controversial thing real quick?
Yeah. Yes.
Semi-controversial D&D belief. I think everyone should DM at least once.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
I think every player should have to DM at least once, just so, because it learns you some empathy about, you know, what the DM has to go through, so you can maybe be a little bit more cooperative, because you know what it's like, what they have to deal with and stuff. And like, so that, you know, whenever
it changes a person whenever you DM and you're like,
so you won't ask
players out there.
Yeah, so whenever the DM does something that you don't like, you won't, maybe you be able to think more of like, well, okay, well, maybe why are they doing this thing? And when you've been in the DM chair, you can understand why a little bit more, and you won't maybe less arguments will ensue now that you've been in the chair, you know.
Yeah, it really can help with the whole MC delusion of some players. It can really help to be the
absolutely, yeah.
Because you have the perspective of, oh, so that's how I act all the time. Oh, wow. You know, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, dude. Yeah.
I know some people might disagree, but you know, that's why I think it's semi-controversial to say everyone. But I personally believe, like, no one else has to believe this, but I believe it's to the benefit of everyone you play with if you try DMing at least once. And who knows, you might like it too. You never know.
You might like it. Pushes person.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you will lose the next.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, bye.
I guess as far as other controversial opinions, I'll get into my thing. I think I brought this up on a different video. My controversial opinion is that I'm like, I think a lot of times people compare Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs to the real world. And I feel like sometimes they try and take too many mechanics or just like look to the real world and try and make it real life. And I'm like, look, it's not.
Games don't do that.
It's not real life.
When games do that, it's boring.
Yeah.
It becomes a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It becomes documentary. It's just
And it's I think like one of the things in particular is I know that there are different philosophies that kind of argue around like if you're playing in a game, like should you be the hero of the story, like, or should you just be a part of this world and there's a lot of things happening in the world. And I do know that there is a philosophy that I disagree with, or it's not that I disagree with it, it's just I'm kind of burnt out on that style where it's like you're a small part of the world. It's going to go on without you. Like, people really don't care about you. Like, no one, you're not really heroes. You're just kind of like people running around in the world of this massive beast and stuff. And I've played in several of those games and I've gotten a little bit burnt out of them. Like, when I run games, I want the players to feel like they have an impact on the world and like are part of a storyline in that world. And it's once again, my philosophy kind of moves around a lot, but right now that's kind of what I'm focusing on.
No, that's valid. I'm the opposite. I love playing, I guess because I haven't gotten enough of it, and I am one of those people who leans a little bit more on the real side. But but I think that's totally fight.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna ask you, like, JoCat, do you do all the mechanics? Like, do you force them to like, do all the? Well, that's kind of what he's getting. Kinda what he's getting at. Like, is where would you roll to see if you like, if you have enough rations to survive the night, or what is like some of the ones?
Well, that's the thing, right? Is like sometimes yes, it's like I'm like, okay, you have to eat food today, at least one set of food.
That was a bad example. I was trying to think of on the spot. It's a good one.
I don't know.
I couldn't think of one.
But no, like I said, that's Ben. That's a totally valid, and and sometimes you just want to be the hero and save the world and like have things that you do matter and that people acknowledge it, and
I guess it also just comes down to like style and what every
DMs be different.
Yeah, everyone and for me, I kind of rotate between different styles. And I first got into 4th edition. I was playing through a lot of combat, got burnt out on it. Went to Call of Cthulhu, where it's like no combat. We're not fighting anything. I don't care what you guys say.
You'll die.
There's none of that. Basically. You're gonna die.
You'll die as soon as you look at a creature.
And then now I've kind of come to a middle ground of like, okay, we could have a little bit of both, one can add to the other. And then it was also like, sometimes I was playing in several games where it's like they had a lot of real world elements, but it was like, it kept getting in the way of the storyline in terms of there's something we want to do, but we have to do 20 other things before we do the thing we actually want to do. Right. And it kept like delaying out the thing that we wanted to do. And by we, it was like 2 or 3 of the players wanted to go accomplish the thing, and then other players wanted to role play out other stuff. And so I think there was a little bit of a conflict there. But it's it could be an issue.
No, screw you. My way's the best way. You gotta draw a line.
I do think it's beautiful. Like, I love sitting in or listening to different DMs like do their thing, because they're all so different. It's very interesting. Like, everyone has their own style.
Yeah.
And I like stealing different people's weird styles, because sometimes they got these DMs have good ideas. Yeah. So I want to steal them.
And at the end of the day, for all those people who are unhappy about the game that they're playing, or like are constantly, once again, if you're a player and don't like how the DM's doing things, you could just like show them how it's done. Like, put your money where your mouth is and be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna stop.
But I want you to be Matthew Mercer.
Oh,
Oh, Jesus.
Well, if you want a game that's like Matthew Mercer, you run it. Go make that Matthew Mercer game.
Can we pause a minute just to talk about that? Because the people that have told me, "Oh, your DM should be more like Matthew Mercer," it's like,
that's gross.
Don't you dare!
don't. Yeah, comparing DMs like in terms of quality is not okay in my book.
It's gross, very toxic.
But also, like Matthew Mercer is like if you are playing football and another person tells you, "Oh, you should be more like Messi. You should be playing better." It's like, really?
Even Matthew Mercer says don't play like Matthew Mercer. Like, listen to him. He says play it, let them run it the way that they run it. And if you don't like it, you can find another group.
I think that's interesting is that you now have, like, because we have stream stuff, you now have different groups you can point to and be like, oh, this style or that style, because it was like, I think kind of older groups, like there really wasn't like the whole online streaming wasn't a thing. Like I know Acquisitions Incorporated and some people watch that and stuff, but because there's more people coming in through these other means, now you have something to point to. And I think there's always been issues with like pointing to different stuff where it's like you watch an anime, it's like suddenly I want to be an anime wee, you know, or something, like I want to be this anime character or something. Or people watch Lord of the Rings and they want
a game to turn out like Lord of the Rings.
But now we also have an issue where it's like there are online games that are being streamed, and so it's it can create issues where it's like one of the players wants to run it this way. Well, actually, there's always been issues where people want to run it different ways. It's now that there's online games, they have a like, oh, this is, I want it like this, you know, or something.
And also,
it's very
sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's very hard to compare it to anything like Critical Role because a lot of it is also the players. Like it's the entire thing.
That's how they want to play.
Like, you can't point to your DM and be like Matthew Mercer. Well, you be like one of these voice actors.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, Jesus.
You be like Liam then.
Be a professional actor.
Yeah. And also,
Jesus.
very important, watching and listening to D&D is vastly different from playing D&D.
Uh-huh. It's very hard to come up with things in the moment, and not all of us are actors. So
but
you can't. Yeah,
I will also say it's that, and I made a video kind of talking a little. It's that sometimes people compare it with a movie, and like movies are scripted. You know, TV shows are scripted. Like people, you know, writers sat down, they made a script, and then the actors were given the script. They practiced it multiple times. They had multiple takes, and they got to. There's so much like pre-production work that goes into the final scene, and it's like it's so crisp. And even if you are working with improv actors aren't going to do scripted work. Like it's still like you are not it's even if you're really good improv, it's not scripted. It's very different. And so there's going to be issues where you set someone up and it just kind of falls through, or you don't, like someone's leading somewhere and you don't really know where they're going and stuff. So it's like that happens in improv activities, unfortunately. I love it. I like that, and I like the fact that it's not scripted, that it has that kind of chaotic nature. But sometimes when people are playing in the game, they feel like that's a bad thing, and then they try and fix it, or they try
want to be railroady, and it's hard.
I have had some games where it's like the GMs or other players are feeding me lines, telling me, okay, this is what you're going to say, you're going to do this, and they're making it more like a movie, but I don't want a movie.
Like, you feel compelled to do X. It's like, let me do X then. Don't tell me to do X.
Yeah, I mean, a good example of this would be from High Rollers, the DM from High Rollers. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I have not.
I don't think I've seen it.
But he makes things very cinematic, whilst also still letting the players drive the narrative. So, like, first chapter of the new series, he makes a huge airship fall, and the characters have to get out of there, and the mechanics are made in such a way that no matter what the players do, it's going to look either cool or it's going to be really great, but the players decide what they do. And I think that's more or less a good way of, if you want it to be more cinematic to do it, is like the High Rollers do it. I just think that not everybody wants that. Not every single person in the group is kind of like that. So you should go... It's very hard when you're doing it with a group of people that you don't know for sure, you haven't played with for years. So it's very difficult to find a way of doing DMing with people you just don't know that well.
But that's the importance of like a session 0, is to set up like, guys, you know, what do you want from this, and what do what do you expect from this?
There was another story, or I've had some issues where like a GM will like watch a TV show or movie, or they'll watch another even a tabletop stream, and they will actually take that material to the game and be like, okay, we're going to be running this.
Oh, and then be disappointed.
Yeah, and be disappointed,
Oh, no.
or like they're suddenly pushing the players to do a thing, and we don't know why they're asking us to do this, and it's like really weird. And there was one time we had one of the GMs introduce this character who was called Splug the Goblin. And we just kind of ignored him, like, okay, whatever, like, we don't want a goblin with us, blah, blah, blah. And we kept pushing us, like, Splug to be a part of the group and something. And it has to do with there was another stream where they had a goblin who was, like, a buddy-buddy with them and and he liked the character. And so because of that, he brought the character in with us, and it was like the exact opposite, because the second he started forcing this goblin to be with us, the more we didn't like him. Mm-hmm. And so
oh no,
it caused the opposite
He tried to
effect.
do it multiple times. Yeah.
Don't make D&D like other people. Like, just make your D&D yours.
You can't force a player to like an NPC. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. You never know which one they'll latch onto, and just roll with the one they do.
I just fall in love with the weirdest NPCs too. Mm-hmm. Like, I've had NPCs I made specifically to see if they like them, and they're like, no, I like this tiefling here. I'm gonna marry her. I'm like, the shopkeeper from the first town you ever played in. I mean, okay, you haven't talked to her in a year, but sure, they just fall in love with the weirdest thing.
It's committed.
So yeah, basically, I guess we're all in agreement. Is you can't anticipate what your players are going to do, so you shouldn't base it off of what you've seen from other you can't expect them. You can't expect anything.
I don't mean this to sound so abysmal, but like, as the GM, just set your expectations real low.
Yeah. Or rather, a better way, I think instead, have no expectations. There you go.
Better.
Rather than having low expectations, have none. Have no expectations.
That sounds so depressing.
Yeah, no, but it's true. It's true.
Right after the heels of you saying everyone should GM, it's great. Yeah, just to learn from it. Oh yeah, by the way, like, be sad and have no expectations. Your players will do anything, right?
Session 0. Well, guys.
And you will finally know the struggle of being a DM.
Session 0. The DM is like, well, guys, I expect nothing from you. I am already angry with all of you, and I don't even know. So let's play. Let's have a good time.
Yeah.
I hate you already. Let's go.
Okay. So on to the next question. Oh.
Yep.
So the next question that I have is, so probably we're going to be finishing up in like 12 minutes or so. We'll see how many questions we can get through. Maybe one more. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we've been talking a lot.
For as far as peripherals, like, do you guys use any kind of like music or minis or any kind of ambient sounds or something else to set the mood?
Yes,
I do, but I don't think there's anything wrong with not. The one campaign that I finished, I actually composed original music for, and made like maps. I ran it in Roll20 primarily, but I made full maps. I made like a bunch of assets like to put on the board. I made character portraits, like tons of stuff. So yes. And if I were to run like a big important campaign like that, I'd probably do it again.
Good. I didn't compose music, but yeah, definitely made maps, made all the made the tokens, made custom assets and everything. And I do like to play with music. I think it helps.
Mm-hmm. Immersion.
But kudos to those who don't. It's okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, in my group, everything is very bare bones, because here either things are way too costly to actually buy, or they are not even here yet. D&D is very new here in South America, so we made ourselves our own quadricles. I don't know how you say it, the squares to play, and we use pieces from other board games to use as characters, maybe chess, and we use some music. We draw ourselves some things, but it's incredibly bare. Like, my DM doesn't have a DM screen. He uses boxes from cereal to play. Mm-hmm. Like in the
I love it.
it's a meme on my Discord server because we took photos of him like opening his arms like Jesus in front of the cereal boxes. It's a video game. So the D&D is really one of those games that no matter what your economic situation is, you can play it. The only way you don't play D&D is if you don't want to play it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. It is what you make it, and whatever way you want to play it is beautiful.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes,
Unless you
all it
do it
takes
the
is an
wrong way,
imagination.
in which case.
Yeah.
Imagination.
All it takes is an imagination.
Unless you're that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as me with the peripheral stuff, I know that with music, one of the players that I have usually is like the jukebox person. So when it's like not their turn, they're looking up songs and then start playing like the battle music or the ambient sounds and stuff. And so I really appreciate that. They're quite good at handling that. As far as minis, I tend to like the player characters, the PCs, they will have their own minis, but for a lot of the enemies, I'll use little pogs that are numbered. And I have tried on occasion to integrate more minis, but I tend to avoid it because it's like, oh, I'm going to run skeletons, so I have to go online, buy skeletons, or get paper minis or something and put them down. And then the encounter with skeletons, I change at the last minute. I decide, no, I'm not doing skeletons, but or something. And so because of the issues with the minis, I just say like, okay, I'm just going to use these pogs to represent the enemies, so that way I can change them out whenever I want, and it gives me that like variability. I have, as far as online games, a lot of games that I've run have just been verbal or theater of the mind style. But I have tried using Roll20 more often, but I have had some issues and stuff where I'm like learning the system and trying to figure it out. And plus, some of the players can't access Roll20, or they can access their character sheet, but they can't see the board or something. And so I had this one game I was running where I was like, oh, it's like the guy next to you. And they're like, what? And it like a few of the players weren't able to see the board or were having problems. And so I kept forgetting which one it was. And so I would not describe something because I'm like, oh, you can just look at the board. You can see he's right behind you. And then the player would be confused, but everyone else is not confused. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out.
It's hard. Yeah, that's a rough situation too. I mean, you could like screenshot it and post it to him, I guess. I don't know.
It's the issue is I keep forgetting which ones have access to the board and which ones did not. And so I would assume that, oh, of course you can see this problem. And then they
suddenly
actually
changed
can't.
their nickname to Problem Bob.
And then, of course, you also have that problem where I had muted my mic and hadn't realized I had muted my mic. So I'd been explaining to them this whole situation, which I assume they were aptly listening. And then when they were messaging me saying, hey, Ben, where are you? And I'm like, I'm right here. Duh. And then it took me a while to realize that I had muted myself.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Damn, that's hard.
rough.
That's hard.
Rough.
I thought they were just ignoring me.
No. Oh, no.
Oh. But, well, maybe we can, I don't know. Did anyone else have anything? I mean,
No, I think we all pretty much answered it.
Yeah.
I think we could do one more. I'm actually starting to get a little munchies.
Yeah, it's...
Winded.
Okay, so let me look. How do you explain D&D to non-D&D players is one. Any restrictions on new players? Let me think.
None. Well, aside from homebrew, I guess.
I mean, homebrew,
Okay.
yeah,
I assume,
maybe.
yeah. We'll just say...
I like to
how do you explain
D&D? Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, let's try that one.
Oh,
How do you explain D&D to non-D&D players? I will say that for me personally, I have relatives that I have to explain D&D to, and they still to this day do not get it. Like,
I don't know how to explain it. Honestly, it's like I try to say like whose line with dice, and they kind of understand.
Yeah,
whose line is it anyway with dice, and they're like, I guess.
And it's because it's like I do this all the time. With this, like how's it going, Ben? Like my mom has a bunch of her sisters. She's got like 10 sisters and brothers, and so we go to the family get-togethers, and they all ask me, like, oh, how's it going? What are you doing? Like, oh, you have a YouTube channel. Your mom told me about it. Like, what's the, like, like,
what is it about?
What's it about? Like, okay, and so I have to explain it to them, and it's such a weird conversation to have to explain to them, and I think the best I've said is I've tried to say like, oh, it's a storytelling game where we go back and forth and I describe something and then your players blah blah blah, and they still are just shaking their heads like, I don't get that.
Yeah, I think the fastest way you can get them to understand is like actually kind of make, if you have a pair of dice in your hands, just be like, all right, you're a small, person that's has a sword.
I did that.
Okay,
so I did that where I said like, okay, you guys are, let's say you're hiking or something and someone goes missing, like, what do you guys do or something? And I tried to do a little role play of just like a minute or 2 minutes just to explain it. And they were just shaking their heads. They were confused. Like they didn't, because the problem is they're like, we're just doing stuff. Like that's not a game. Like I check my pack. I look inside. I look out. Like that's not a game. That's just stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I would. Well, like that's where I would tell them like it's a more complicated version of playing pretend. That's what I would.
Which then it makes it sound even worse. Like you're an adult making a make-believe game. That's just
yes,
and then
absolutely.
you're like, come on,
sort of. But
it is adult. It is adult make-believe.
And
yes,
it is adult make-believe. And if I were to try and get them into playing it, I would try and convince them by saying, even though it's not very accurate, I would get them into it by saying it's like you get to play in your own TV show.
Okay, there was one other question.
That's a pretty good one.
There was one other question I completely forgot to ask, which you guys can finish this one out before I ask it. Does anyone else have anything else to say?
No, you're good.
I do X, and then you roll some dice to see how good you do X.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, there is like a page on Dungeons & Dragons, like in the handbook, where it describes, it's like the 3 rules of, I say what I want to do, I roll the dice, and then you resolve it or something. But anyway, the actual question, one of the questions I forgot to ask was on house rules. Like, do you guys have any house rules?
I do, but now thinking of them out on the spot, I'm it's been integrated so long.
Yeah, I have one where my friends and I have one. That is, when you roll for stats, you roll 4 dice and take the lower one instead of just rolling 3. Like groups I know.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty common. But usually it would be just roll 3 and take the result, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's in the official rules stats.
Roll 4, drop the lowest is generally like the go-to.
Oh, awesome. Then I thought it was homebrew. Okay.
One of my other friends also had another thing where they would also re-roll 1s as well, and characters are beasts if you do that. It's 4 re-roll 1s and then drop the lowest. Would like you're running around like 15, 16, 17, stuff like that.
A pretty common one, at least for my table, is like we always roll for recap. So like it's a good way for DMs to like figure out what players are gravitating towards and what they remember the most. So basically at the very start of the session, you roll just a d20. Whoever gets the lowest has to give the recap, and normally you give them inspiration. And basically, so it's not really like supposed to be accurate, necessarily like a perfect like retelling of what happened. It's mostly a way of the DM just sort of refreshing everyone, but also figuring out like, okay, what did this player enjoy the most out of this session? So it's really helpful for long-term campaigns to sort of gauge what what players, what people, what your players are liking.
Mm-hmm. And as for me, my house rules, when I DM anyway, I don't think that me and my friends have like a general like universal house rules, but my house rules are I don't care about alignment. I put whatever you want. I usually just kind of it doesn't matter to me. And but if it does matter to you, then I tell you what your alignment is based on what I feel. That's one house rule that I feel I like.
Alignment's a little bit
it's
weird.
A weird thing, and I feel like it's like
IBM does that too. Actually, they're fluid alignment.
Yeah, they are fluid.
Depending on your actions, your alignment might or may not change.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense that since the DM is sort of the world, that it makes sense that the DM is also the determinant of... I
mean, the DM decides where you go after you die. The DM is literally just existence. So.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I also
real life, guys. This is real. Like,
I also I'm just spouting out a bunch of controversial stuff, but this last one, I also go by whenever players are rolling against each other. I go by the rule of player consent. Or when players are doing anything towards each other. So like if somebody's going to steal something from somebody else, if the other player that is being stolen from doesn't want that to happen, it does not happen.
Okay, yeah.
That's a good way of nipping it in the bud.
Yeah,
If you got problem players.
It's not the same as stealing from someone that is sitting right next to you. It can actually foster a very negative relationship between them, where they just try to outmatch each other.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the F word.
Yeah, but
yeah.
It's mostly because I've had the unfortunate situation where I have run a game where two of the players were at each other's throats, and I could tell that whenever they were like doing role playing fighting, I could tell that it was a little bit more than that.
No, I know. It is funny how like you don't want to specifically ban this one particular kind of activity, but and what's funny is that sometimes the difference between bullying and playing can be like really close, where sometimes two players can have a really good reputation and they'll play and they'll kind of do these kind of jerk things to each other, but it's okay because they're both okay with it. But then there's another person who's the bully, who specifically is looking to irritate people, specifically looking to make sure that they're going to be mad or upset about it, and is looking to push people's buttons. And that person you actually have to be like kind of clamping down on or saying like, no.
And I would just be like
either talk with them or just say, hey, I'm sorry, we have to drop you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I can understand, because when I first started watching Critical Role, I really liked the relationship between Grog and Bax, in which they both try to always prank each other, and they're kind of like, and I tried that in my first session, and he was like, hey, dude, I don't really like that. And I was like, oh, sorry, can we talk about it? So it really like made me realize you should talk about this with the person.
Yeah.
Because it's not in Critical Role, they didn't just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do it and it's gonna be fine. They actually probably talked it before, like, hey, yours, would you be okay with it?
And they also probably know each other well enough that they know when they're being silly and goofy, and they're good friends, Also, Jess, thank you so much. I just realized what you were drawing. You are the best.
Oh yeah. It's your beautiful bag.
I appreciate it.
Oh, these are all nice.
I can't stop. I can't stop making handsome twink male characters, I guess.
Or buff girls.
Or buff girls, yeah. I'm gonna play a buff girl eventually.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys for making the art this entire time, because I realized halfway through it that like the problem is I'm OBS recording it, and so because of that, if I changed it, I think it would actually change the recording per se. So I like wanted to leave it as is. But anyway, as far as my homebrew rules, I do know at the beginning of the session, I will give the players inspiration, and I'll say like, okay, if you roll a die and then you don't like the result, you can spend inspiration to re-roll it, which technically it just gives you advantage. And it's gone by the end of the session. I also have I've started using like common sense, like magic items, where like here are magic items and they have prices, and you can go to an enchanter and then purchase these things. So I'm trying to make magic items a little bit more readily available for the player, so they have something to spend the gold on.
Yeah, that's very smart. Yeah, because sometimes gold in certain sessions just gets useless very quickly.
Yeah, I just thought of this question. How do you guys go about knowing what magic items do? Do you go, okay, a player has to use it before they know how it works, or when they get it, they know how it works?
It depends. They have a tune.
They don't know how it works.
If it has a tune, at least I think if it attunes, they should know what it does. But if it doesn't have attunement, then they should identify it, or otherwise they will not know what it is. Just
okay, so it's case by case.
Yeah.
Also, I'm curious. Well, for me, it's you don't know what it is when you grab it. If you identify it, you know what it is. If you tune to it, you know what it is, basically. But I think I'm curious if you guys with identify spells, because there is a stipulation identify that for cursed items, whether or not the DM chooses to let them know it's cursed until it's too late.
Yeah, probably I would not tell them, but
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I also, for me, as far as the magic items things, if I'm playing in a high fantasy world where the players are getting like 10 magic items per session, I'm like, okay, you guys know what they are, just so that way it's not an issue. But sometimes they'll find an item which is not in the DMG, where it's like, ooh, it's this skull and there's this strange black vapor emanating off of it. Like, you have no idea what that is, you know?
Right.
Oh, this is the rainbow power, you know, like ability that I get from this item.
But sometimes it's like, ooh, there's this bag and there's this weird space in there. Like, how deep does it? It's a bag of holding. Okay, it's a bag of holding. You've seen these before. We're a high magic setting. Like, everyone has these. They sell them at the store. You know, your parents had one.
You gotta be brain dead if you don't know what it does.
It's a stance. Is it lantern? Yeah, it's a lantern. Yeah. It's lantern.
You know, it depends on if it's like new players, then yeah, definitely. You know,
new players are the best because you get to introduce them to all that stuff. It's
all
like
the cursed items.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, they're the best. And also sometimes it can be very stressful because you're like, oh no, you wanted their first time to be a good experience.
Right.
And you're like, oh no, am I up to the challenge?
Jess, were you going to ask something to the group? Or
to what, the group?
Oh, do you guys have any other questions? Because I know. What was it? Joe asked one. Do you two have any other questions?
Not really. Did you have a nice time? Was it cool? I don't really have any questions.
Questions. What is your favorite race?
Oh.
Well, you have human. Wait, Puffin is just human. That's right.
Yeah, I really like humans. But if I was not allowed to say humans, I'll think of my second favorite.
Yeah, human is off the table. You have to pick something new.
My personal favorite. The thing is, like, I like all of the races. Like, I think my favorite.
There's a lot of good ones.
Not exactly to play, but just my favorite all around is Tiefling. I guess I just like horned people. I like.
You like those? Oh no, you like those horny boys?
Yeah, the horny boys.
The horny boys.
I mean, they are the sexiest race because they're the closest thing you got to succubi and incubi. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're very adorable. Unless you're like me, where I get like crazy into the infernal heritage, where I'm like, oh, let's give them squid arms.
Yeah.
Okay, I will say also I do really like tieflings because it's like they come in such a variety of colors and different horns and stuff like that. So
yeah, fun fact. Usually tieflings are the same color of skin as people, like humans. But
screw that.
Yeah, most players decide to make them like multicolor, and it's cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think in the player handbook the race, it does say that it can have quite a variety of.
It's just usually it's very. They say it's very rare, and I don't think.
Oh.
I think they can range from red to like very reddish violet, but I don't think they say they can blue. No, I find it really cool. I find it really cool.
There's
into this.
As far as the other race that I like, I think halflings I really like just because they're so happy-go-lucky.
They're so cute.
And then they have that, and they are literally lucky. And
yes, they are.
I have made several halflings that will get like bountiful luck, where it's like they have that lucky ability, but they can spread it to the entire group.
Dude, that's awesome. That means.
And so when you have that ability, it means all your friends basically can't crit fail, like they roll and then you can re-roll it. And some players actually don't like that ability, and understandable, I got a little bit sick of it because it's like you can't, like, once you have that character in the group,
you're immune.
You are immune to crit fails, the entire group, and some players like crit failing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's fun. Sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, halflings are so cute. Yeah.
You're so adorable. You're so right. Yeah. They just.
What about you, Adan? What do you like?
Right? No, they're small.
Say again?
Yeah, they're small race.
Yeah. Yeah, Adan, what's your favorite race?
Oh man, I really like Kenkus and Arakokra.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I know, the birds.
Yeah, the birds. It's just something about them living between 30 to 40 years maximum. Then it's like, how would a person that for any class applies really? How would this creature in this profession with this background, knowing that they only might have between 15 to 20 years to live, how would they live their life? What would their life objective become?
Yeah.
You know, so I've had some that have like goddess be like, well, I want to become the champion of my goddess before dying. Another that are evil, they're like, I just want to be immortal, dude. I just want immortality, you know? And it's very fun, and I find them to be just so beautiful, you know? I don't know. I just really like them. And I like describing how they look and abilities applied to their plumage. You know, like, how does a druid Kenku transform themselves? How do the animals transform?
Oh yeah, you can describe like their feathers like transforming or like blowing off, and it's like beautiful. And it's like, and there's so many birds you could pick from.
Yeah,
and
there's so many
good birds.
I think we just like the aesthetic classes where you can, or races where you can just be a bunch of different colors and different styles.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I obviously like the aesthetic class because I'm always doppelganger changeling,
Yeah,
so it's like be everything.
Goliaths are very good, but male Goliaths, just you can't do much with them. Like really, you can't do much.
If I don't pick
human, but without hair, you know, it's like okay.
Oh yeah, watch me.
Big old boys.
I am the master of playing against type. I will just watch me. I'm gonna make a meek little skinny Goliath.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, a short Goliath. Sad day.
Just watch me. And that's what I think is great about D&D, is that if you don't like something or you would like to play against the stereotypical stuff, you can just do it. You can just do that.
You can do it. You can gimp yourself.
Yeah.
It's great.
But anyway, thank you guys.
I was going to just say, I really, you know, if I were to pick a race that wasn't aesthetically pleasing, you know, just sort of like one that's like not for the how pretty or beautiful or interesting it looks, but I would have to say I'm really getting a lot of mileage out of the Kalishtar race that came out of Eberron. That's the race that basically it looks human, essentially, but essentially they have this spirit that's attached to them that is like a separate entity that's like inside of them. So you can make them very like almost alien minded, where they've got two minds going on in their head. It's so ripe for so much like divergent storytelling with it, because you can like imagine like reflavoring it. You can make it like a child, and she's like
in a trench coat.
Her mother, or like haunted by her mother, or something. Like it could be any spirit. It could be like a warlock and their patron. The patron that literally lives inside of you.
I like that.
Like,
or like with a JoJo stand.
Yeah, or you have a JoJo stand. Yeah, like, because that's literally how the class is flavored, where like it's you have a a spirit that lives with you and gives you advice, and it's enters your dreams, and it's very cool. But it's not necessarily aesthetics, but it's cool.
Yeah.
So
with a JoJo stand. It would be so cool.
Yeah. Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but
after a while.
But anyway, sorry. Yeah. Here you go.
Okay, so anyway, I guess we're gonna be wrapping up here. So anyway, thanks you guys for coming, and I appreciate it for making all this lovely art so people have stuff to look at while we're talking. Okay, cool. And also thank you to the the people on Twitter who submitted questions. I'll give thanks in the comments for everyone who sent things. And I didn't say them like literally, I had to kind of translate a little bit. And sometimes people ask like similar stuff. And so I was like, okay, these 3 questions are kind of like this, so there's some combining.
Exactly.
I get what you mean.
You had 300 questions under that.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Or not enough.
Answer them all.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, thank you everyone who submitted questions, and I really appreciate you guys for being guests and stopping by. It's really cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, well, thank you, Puffin,
thanks, Ben.
and thank you everybody else. You guys are great, and beautiful people.
All right, bye.
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 See you. Bye.